I was going to start tonight's show by sharing my thoughts and prayers with the victims of last night's attack in Germany. I'll still do that. I pray for them all. But then I thought how tiresome the whole thing is. How many times must we utter thoughts and prayers before we finally say we've had enough? Because I've had enough. I've had enough of being told how great uncontrolled mass immigration is. I've had enough of being gaslit into accepting millions of strange people from faraway lands who quite clearly hate our way of life, or at the very least have a few screws loose. And I've had enough of politicians in dark suits sitting behind the safety of their desks, destroying everything we once held dear. Watch the BBC last night and you'll have been coaxed into thinking this horrific attack had nothing to do with terrorism. And the loser who carried it out was simply stressed or lost his job.
50 is a very unusually high age for somebody to be carrying out something like this. There are often more than one reason why somebody would want to do this. It's not always purely terrorism. It's not purely ideology. It can be mental. There could be all sorts of reasons. Stress that they're undergoing. They might have been fired. They might have, their wife or partner has left them. They might be extremely upset about something.
Unbelievable. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick summed up the feeling of the continent last night. He said, end mass migration, revoke visas, deport those who hate us, give no quarter to extremists. We don't have to live like this. I don't care if the guy who committed this attack is an Islamist, an anti-Muslim, or even a white American. He wasn't meant to be in Germany. He was a criminal asylum seeker who was meant to be extradited to Saudi Arabia, but allowed to stay because German politicians don't care about German people. Let's get an update to last night's attack from our Home and Security editor, Mark White, who joins us now. Mark, what's the latest, please?
Well, we've had a memorial service that's taken place in Magdeburg this evening, the kind of spectacle that we always get after an atrocious event like this, when people want to come together, to be together, to mourn, to reflect and to show solidarity. But alongside that spectacle of the memorial service are, of course, the very uncomfortable questions that will now have to be answered by the German authorities about this individual, a Saudi national originally who came to Germany in 2006. And Talib Abdul Mohsen was granted refugee status in 2016, despite efforts by the Saudi government to have him extradited back to that country. We're told that there were multiple warnings issued in diplomatic cables to the German government and the intelligence services about this individual's extreme views. There was also a specific warning from a member of the public passed to the police and intelligence services last year about the postings on social media of this individual, which were very threatening in nature. It seems nothing or very little was ever done about these warnings. So some significant questions for authorities in Germany to answer really about this individual. And of course, as more information has come out about Talib Abdul Mohsen, people jumping on this information suggesting that he was anti-Islamist. But really, I think that is a distraction and a bit disingenuous, because as far as people in Germany are concerned, who have real concerns about uncontrolled immigration and the potential security threat that brings, it doesn't matter whether it's an Islamist or an anti-Islamist. What they see is an individual who was given refugee status, who was given protection by the country of Germany, only years later to turn against his country, his adopted country, in the most horrific spectacle and way, killing so far, we're told, 5 people with 200 injured, but the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz saying that at least 40 of those who've been injured are very significantly injured, and some real concerns about that death toll rising in the hours ahead.
OK, Mark White, thanks very much. Yeah, indeed, there was a picture released tonight, not officially, but on Facebook, apparently by the mother of one of the young lads involved, the 9-year-old who unfortunately died. A sweet, sweet boy. He looked angelic, and it tears my heart apart to know that he's gone days before Christmas, his poor family. Thank you, Mark. I'm now joined by Deputy Leader of Rejoin EU, Richard Morley, who is live in Berlin. Good evening, Richard. Thank you for joining me. Can I ask you, have you had enough of this nonsense?
Thank you for having me, Ben. Good evening. Like yourself, I'm sure that there are millions of people in Britain and in Germany, indeed all across Europe, who have serious concerns about the issues surrounding immigration. So you are not alone in those thoughts, and my party also understands them very much. But we must not tend towards simplification of the issue, because, of course, this is an example of how attacks within society can come from quarters where you might never expect it. We've had all sorts of terrorist so-called attacks, violent attacks against people in many countries for many different reasons. And unfortunately, this attack is just another one of those.
Well, Richard, can I sorry to interrupt, can I ask you from which part of the world these people tend to come from? Because you don't see white Christians driving vehicles and vans into people at Christmas markets.
Well, of course not. But the point is that we've had all sorts of other violent actions against groups in society, occasioned by white people, in America in particular. But of course also here in Germany, also in Britain, as you all know.
Well, Richard, I would say, for example, school shooters in America are Native Americans, people who are meant to be there, they're American citizens. The issue here is that this guy, this Saudi guy, was an asylum seeker in Germany. He was asked to be extradited. Germany said no. The Saudi intelligence services reportedly tipped off the Germans many times about him. This guy wasn't meant to be in the country. German politicians let their countrymen and women down by not extraditing him.
Yes, well, of course, it's a complicated story because Abdul Mohsen was, of course, a Saudi dissident. He was at odds with the Saudi regime. He'd become atheist and he was advocating a non-religious approach. He's totally anti-fundamentalist in Islam. So he's not like many of the other terrorists that have been sadly at action. I think that's a red herring. Whether he was anti-Islam, whether he was an Islamist, regardless of what he said online or on Twitter or on X, the guy wasn't meant to be there. He was an asylum seeker, welcomed into Germany off the back of Angela Merkel welcoming half of the Middle East into Germany. He wasn't meant to be there. That's the point. I don't think it matters whether he was an Islamist or not. What do you mean meant to be there? He was legally in Germany. He was granted asylum in 2016.
And they refused his extradition to Saudi Arabia because he was a criminal. They refused his extradition to Saudi Arabia because he was a criminal.
Well, I think that's a speculation on your part. The reasons for the refusal of the extradition to Saudi Arabia was done for probably reasons that we don't fully understand. For example,
because he was a criminal.
Yes, but the point is there's politics involved here for extradition, as you know. The German state probably had good reasons not to extradite him, which we are not fully aware of. This is not such a simple matter of immigrant causing deaths. It's a complicated issue where a man living inside a country has had great grievance against the German state, whether well-founded or not, is, of course, a matter for investigation. But he has a grievance against the police force and the German state, and particularly a NGO called Atheist Refugee Relief, which he cites on his video explaining the thing. You have seen the video that he made, I suppose.
Yes, I have. I've seen his interview with the BBC. Yeah. Yes, of course I have. Richard, you're not quite clearly, you're not justifying what he did, are you?
Of course not. No act of violence against anyone can ever be justified. I totally abhor violence. But I'm saying that his reasoning is what's got to be considered. We don't know yet what it was. It's pure speculation.
Sorry, Richard, sorry to keep interrupting you, but I am obliged to. His reasoning for mowing down people at the Christmas market needs to be considered.
Yes, his reasoning has to be understood so that we can prevent it happening in the future. That's right. The whole reason why criminologists try to understand crime is to stop it happening again. I'm sure you can understand that.
Well, I would suggest, call me naive, I would suggest the easiest way to stop this happening is to not let them in the country in the first place.
Well, you can't stop all immigration simply because
You can if there's the will there. If the political will is there, you can.
Well, even Britain isn't stopping all immigration. It's taking a very large number of immigrants.
I know, and what an absolute mess we're in. What a mess. Richard Morley, thank you very much for your contributions tonight.
Can I just make one point before I go? One point before I go. And that is that immigration is a factor that's going to be with us for a very long time because of the refugees caused by wars and climate change. And the situation will progress. There's nothing we can do to stop it. We have to live with it.
Yeah.
But we have to learn how to live with it.
Richard,
and that's the task that lies before us.
How do you know that these people, for example, in Britain, we have 40,000 odd people a year coming across the channel. How do you know who they are or whether they're refugees? They lob their phones and their passports into the channel. We don't know their criminal history. We had a lad from Serbia who committed a double murder in Serbia. He was allowed into Britain for some bizarre reason. He came on a small boat, as far as I can remember. And then he killed a British boy in, I think it was Bournemouth or Portsmouth. We don't know who these people are. You don't know that they're refugees or asylum seekers.
No, but we don't. Neither do we know exactly what's going on in the civil population's activities, do we? We don't know fully what anybody is doing.
Right. I'll make the point, Richard. If we don't know who these people are, and we've no idea of verifying their history, we should not be letting them in the country. Doesn't that sound like a sensible policy?
Well, we can try to stop them, but whether or not we can succeed in doing that is an entirely different issue. Because is it possible to actually stop immigration? I'm not certain that it is.
OK. Richard Morley, thank you for your contributions. Appreciate it. Let's get the thoughts now of my panel with me this evening. Broadcaster and commentator Judita De Silva, the journalist and broadcaster Mike Reid, and the comedian and writer Sajila Kershi. Good evening to you all. Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining me. Judita, let's start with you. Your thoughts, please, on what happened last night. And do you agree it's a bit of a red herring whether this guy was, even if he's a Christian, if he's an anti-Islamist, if he's a Muslim, it's beyond the point. The fact is that this is uncontrolled mass migration into Europe. And again, we're feeling the consequences. People have died.
I think there's multiple layers to it. First of all, the presiding sentiment is just it has to be thoughts and prayers to those who've lost family members, loved ones, and just the sentiment in the city itself, because what happened is horrifying, and there's no debate on that. But the point that you said about is him being anti-Islam important, it is. Because the point your guest just made is that in criminology, you study the psychology of a criminal to know what motivates a human being to do something so abhorrent. That way you create mile markers that you can identify in other people to preemptively act before they do such a thing again. With this particular person, even the politicians in Germany have said he doesn't fit the profile, which is what is disturbing them so much, because they've had a template of understanding for who a terrorist is, who an Islamist is, who's anti-Islam. He doesn't fit the profile because he had a decent job. He was very publicly anti-Islam. Yeah. He worked to get women out of Saudi Arabia who were anti-Islam as well. So
he was also accused of trafficking those women.
He became extremely far right while he was in Germany.
Well, so all this is based off his tweets. I mean, some of them talking about Elon Musk and others supporting the AfD.
It is based on his tweets, because when you look at tweets, it's the expression of people's organic thoughts without censorship. We talk all the time about
let me ask you, Judita, why wouldn't a man who's happy to mow down people at a Christmas market, why is it inconceivable that he would lie or try and go under the radar by putting that kind of stuff online?
But that's why I say it's so important that this guy is studied, because maybe he has lied about a plethora of things, but you have to understand what kind of a person is this to make sure we don't let anyone like this operate with the kind of freedom to do what he did.
Yeah. Mike Reid, your thoughts? Do you think it matters what his...
Yeah, it's difficult to profile someone like this. It's they were warned about him in 2007 and again another twice. But how do you apprehend somebody and arrest somebody when they haven't yet done anything that you can arrest them for? So you have all these people that have got these profiles that are being watched. How many people can you put out to watch people? You know, how much money have you got to spend watching these? Presumably, he hasn't done anything like this until this date.
Well, Mike, they could have kicked him out when Saudi Arabia asked for his extradition. You know, why is it down to the German taxpayers to fund these crackpots from the Middle East? If he wants to be extradited to Saudi Arabia, why is Germany taking it upon themselves to say, no, it's fine, we'll deal with the problem? It's not Germany's problem. It's not the problem of the German people.
Yeah, but the immigration thing in Germany now is it's starting to become unpopular. It wasn't to start with. They've now, downgraded that a lot. So, I mean, he was against the mass migration, but has he not done anything until now? What triggers these people to wait until a particular time to do something like this, which is abhorrent? I mean, a young kid dies before Christmas, 200 families are destroyed. It's horrendous.
Yeah. As I said, I'm sick of it. I saw the picture of the young lad earlier, the 9-year-old. It's unverified as of yet, but an angelic, sweet boy, as any 9-year-old would be, and it breaks my heart before Christmas. Sajila, your thoughts?
Well, I kind of agree with what Jacinta was saying. Sorry. Damn hearing. I'll never hear words properly. We don't know the profile, and it would be good to kind of analyse him and find out what he's up to. But actually, there's lots of things to unpick, because it's like one lone wolf, which I've scoured the web. It's one lone wolf who's done this, and you're saying it's like now that is relevant to all migrants. And what do we do? So what's the answer?
Well,
do we deport all migrants and all Muslims? He's Islamophobic, right? Because that's what he's an apostate. Yeah, he's an apostate, right? So he's given up.
Again, that's what he wants to put.
But you don't know. So you're saying that's what he wants to put over, but none of us, neither you or I or anyone else.
It matters.
It does matter. I don't think it does matter. I think it does matter. Actually, it does, because what you're saying is, well, it doesn't matter what he is, because if you say he wasn't anything Muslim, whatever, what he did, well, whoever did this attack, would we? And they're from France. Would we be having the same conversation when he wasn't meant to be there? He's French. It's not. So you're judging this based on one person, lone wolf, acts like a nutter, and I think that the hard law should fall on him. What he did today was disgusting.
How many terrorist attacks have we seen in Europe since 2004? Let's go back.
But you're collating them all together to equate that it's all Muslims or all migrants. And I think that's a really dangerous rhetoric.
Can you name me any white Christians who run down people at Christmas markets?
There's lots of white Christians who do it in America.
There's lots of in London Bridge twice, stabbed people to death.
There's lots of people who do it in America. There's gun crime galore committed by white people. So what you're saying is a colour thing. Then you're saying it's people of colour. No,
I'm talking about in America. School shootings are mainly committed by people who are American citizens. These people are as a result of uncontrolled mass migration into
It's
Europe.
one migrant, one person with a migrant. It's one person with a migrant background, and what you're saying is that all migrants therefore are a threat to German society.
I didn't say that. My point is, we don't know who these people are. Let's use the English Channel as an example. 40,000 people coming across the Channel. We've no idea who they are, where they came from, what their intentions are.
And in part, I agree with you.
They're killing young British lads in Bournemouth. They're killing people, old men in Manchester. We don't know who they are.
I agree.
This guy is random. I mean, the people he ran into are totally random. He's not running down certain types of people. He's just running into a crowd.
Well, does that make it okay?
No, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make it okay.
I don't see what the point is.
He's running.
You're already asserting what the conclusions are when everyone is saying that this is so random and so arbitrary, it has to be understood. You don't know the motivation of this person, because knowing the motivation is the same avenue you would give to any criminal that does something abhorrent that hasn't been done before. That sets a template of understanding. But then for you to say that I attribute he's a terrorist, it's because he's an immigrant, he hates Germans, that's why he's done this.
I didn't say he was a terrorist because he hates...
The point that you also made about him being anti-Islam, it's an important point for the same reason like in America, where you see there are Latinos who do not like Latino immigrants. When you go to somewhere like Florida and you see the tensions between Cubans and other Latinos, that happens within a community where you can be against your own.
Yeah, my point is there are tens of thousands of people from faraway lands flooding into countries all across Europe. We don't know who they are. Even if 0.01% of them are nutters and want to kill, that is one too many. That's my point.
But but also, can I just say that he says Islamification, right? He hates the Islamic. He thinks, Germany is responsible for the Islamification of Europe. Okay. That's what you think as well. So there's something you both have in common. But you're not going to go down mowing down people. You're not mowing people down. So why did he do that? And I think it is important to find out.
He occupies a similar sentiment, a right-wing sentiment.
I think you're giving too much gravitas to his scrawlings on Twitter. I mean, as I said, how can you believe somebody's authenticity when they're happy to mow down people at a Christmas market? And yet, on the other hand, you want to believe that's
when somebody commits a crime, you do attribute all their writings to have some kind of validity to why they did what they did.
OK, we will pick this debate up just after this, because we have to change gear, unfortunately.